With an EDR, we are continuously analyzing what's going on our endpoints with things like behavior analysis, actually understanding, hey, what's normal on that machine? Maybe you have downloaded an application and maybe it was approved, but all of a sudden that application is doing something a little bit suspicious. Maybe you sent a Word document to a colleague. If I've sent a Word document to Ben, Ben's opened that because he trusts me, but me being silly, not knowing that there is something possibly malicious on that particular Word document that he has clicked on and it's downloaded something in the back end. An EDR will know the 12 different things that a Word document can and should do. And as soon as it steps out of those 10 or 12 things, it will then treat it differently to a Word document. It will most likely treat it as malicious. And at least from Huntress's side of things, it will send a signal to the SOC team for the SOC team to go ahead and start doing some analysis and introduce that human element. So it's not just technology, at least from Huntress's side. We go a step further. We also bring in the humans with that to do the analysis to conduct. Tell us a little bit more about the response capabilities within EDR.
I think one of the beautiful things is that we allow partners to choose where and how Huntress will respond to threats on their behalf. If partners want us to simply detect, we can send over an incident report and let the partner take it from there. If they want us to contain, or as we call it, isolate a threat, essentially make sure that the initially impacted workstation or server can't talk to anyone else on its own network or even the external network, so it can't continue to receive instructions from some sort of command and control server. But we can even take it a little bit further than that. We have this concept called active remediation, which essentially grants our SOC permission to take additional actions on the endpoint. So it's not just, hey, we've limited this malware from being able to spread anywhere else, but we could actually say, hey, let's kill that running process of that malware.exe. And we see that there was also malicious scripts. Let's clean up that script. Any other malicious artifacts, clean up the registry. If we see things like scheduled tasks, we can delete those, look for auto runs, persistence mechanisms. So we're in a really great position to make sure that from an individual incident perspective, we can do a whole lot of cleanup and really take full ownership from a response capability. And all that's just included with our managed EDR.
We include that 24/7 SOC as a managed EDR. Again, with the statistics that we have, at least from an EDR perspective, we have nearly 4 million endpoints globally right now. That's a significant number to where we was 1 year ago. And to introduce that with a mean time to respond of 8 minutes with a 0.7% false positive rate, not relying on things like AI, that's phenomenal. And I'm always proud and confident to say, trial it, because I know you'll fall in love with it. There will be a situation where you're going to see how the SOC team interacts, or we'll simulate an incident together, for example, and they're always blown away. They're always amazed with that. So definitely 24/7 SOC team is a huge win over here. With Huntress, if we need to see, hey, has something been affected within the network layer as well? Do we need to have a look at possible lateral movement? Check out the seam logs as well. And that's something that you don't get with just an EDR. That's the humans behind it. I believe we've got a very, very solid technology, but nowadays it's not hard to find good technology, but what is hard is to find good people behind the technology. And that's where, especially from a Huntress capacity, is where we really stand out compared to other vendors.
Absolutely. I was at RSA conference last week, and every other booth you'd walk by, they're talking about how AI is going to solve all of the problems. And I'm not an anti-AI guy, but I think that at the end of the day, you really need humans to be making some sort of a disposition, a validation of alerts. Is this actually threatening? Is this worthy of my time? And what our customers love about Huntress is that we're only going to send over an incident report and an alert if it's worthy of your time, if it's truly threatening. We have an incredible false positive rate. And I think that's something to really think about. Like, if you are actually going to get an alert in the middle of the night, or even during the day when you're trying to get through a million tickets, if you're an IT person, you're just trying to focus on keeping the lights on and your users happy and at work, having a SOC that can kind of just alleviate these problems and stay on the forefront of like what is new and trending in the world of cyber, which is changing every single day.
Now, where have you heard a less than 1% false positive rate that does not rely on AI to do their analysis? 0.7% is the figure we have now, which is absolutely outstanding, with a mean time to respond of 8 minutes.
That's
This is
wild.
why Huntress is so proud of our SOC team and our technologies, and of course our people.
Application whitelisting, you might also hear it referred to as application allowlisting or application control. It's the idea of really locking down your software inventory to only run approved software. You see that second bullet point, the introduction of a zero trust approach. And I know that sounds very buzzwordy, but really we should be incredibly intentional about what should be allowed to run in our environment, what sort of software is approved and sanctioned. We have a valid business case for it. We expect our users or our IT admins to be using these things. And if it's essentially not on our list that we are allowing, we shouldn't allow it to run at all. And it should be essentially blocked, prevent it from installing or being allowed to execute.
Allowlisting isn't foolproof. Okay. It requires some element of configuration. It requires some element of continuous configuration because applications continuously evolve throughout a business. Now, what happens if you don't keep on top of your configuration? There could be vulnerabilities. There could be a moment for a gap, which a bad actor could leverage.
If you're not keeping up with new updates, new versions of software, maybe there are new files that need to be allowed, or there's a new process from a new plugin. And if you're not allow listing that, all of a sudden, critical line of business applications may not work, even though you previously had them going correctly in your application control solutions. It's not a set and forget solution. It's something that requires an ongoing maintenance effort. Take Screen Connect, for example. Screen Connect is probably one of the most popular legitimate tools that we see our IT admins and partners use every single day to perform regular IT admin type tasks. They need to troubleshoot users' computers, right? They need to log into servers to perform maintenance. But we also see it where the bad guys are trying to use Screen Connect because they know this is an expected normal application. It's not inherently evil. And so they're going to try to come in and trick a user into falling for a fake tech support scam. They'll have Screen Connect installed, which may or may not be allow listed. And so that's kind of where you need to make sure that you've got your defense in depth. You've got other controls to kind of watch for the behavior of, okay, Screen Connect might be running, but what else is happening around that? Are there additional files being dropped? Screen Connect can run scripts. What scripts are being executed? What new applications are being opened? So it's really more about looking for a chain of events than necessarily just saying, hey, we're blocking everything that we know is bad. Application control has its place. You can enforce things through application control. Like, we really only want our users to be running one browser. We want folks to be running Microsoft Edge. We want to block or disallow, Google Chrome or Firefox, and that limits where potentially users can be downloading malware or falling for some sort of malvertising scheme. It allows you to roll out things like an ad blocker to your preferred browser of choice. So when we're talking about these things, it's not saying we're actually going to block this attack, but it's limiting the attack surface of how the bad guys might be able to get in. Just to kind of hype up a little bit, why I still really do like application control and how it minimizes risk. I mean, think about it this way. If you have a preferred file sharing solution in your organization, if you guys are a SharePoint or you use OneDrive for Business, but you don't really have any legitimate business reason to be using something like Dropbox or BoxSync, if you can proactively limit those types of applications from getting installed on your computer, that's a huge attack surface. Think about like a data exfil attack, right? Where they're trying to steal data. Oftentimes, the bad guys aren't going directly to their own home server. They're going to try to be sneaky about it, try to bring it through legitimate applications. So if we can kind of limit where they're able to exfil data to, that's awesome. And the same mindset can be approached to things like backup utilities or transfer utilities. These are all the same sort of living off the land or benign software that sometimes can have that dual use where we know that threat actors are going to try to abuse it because they know that EDR isn't going to say this is an inherently bad software and we need to immediately shut this down. So that's where you can really complement a great sort of application control to only allow specific applications that you sanction, and pair that up with an EDR to capture, well, what is actually running and what other sort of behavioral things seem unusual for our environment. And of course, like you mentioned, the great people that keep an eye on everything, especially when you sleep.